Welcome to Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. In this podcast, we delve into the non-clinical aspects of dentistry with inspirational guests from across the profession. You will hear incredible life stories, pick up valuable business tips and be entertained. I'm Andy Acton and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Drevens. Some people, you know a bit about them, and a lot of what you know is kind of through their professional life, but the things that Gemma had to say about what she's been through in the last year or 18 months are just remarkable.
It is an inspirational story. I know that's probably quite often an overused phrase, isn't it? But as you say, we've known Gemma for probably the 15 years, if not a bit longer. And all that stuff, didn't know about. What a lot to cope with in a relatively short period of time and run a business. Yeah,
and the way she has had to kind of reassess, reevaluate and reprioritise things, but in such a well thought out, structured and mindful way.
I know hers was predicated by her cancer diagnosis, but it's a real lesson for people to maybe revisit and review and reset their own lives.
Totally, and I think it's that thing that we said, and people hear it in the episode, but just we do take health for granted.
True.
I know on a day-to-day basis, every now and then we think, I'm grateful to be healthy. When you talk to somebody like Gemma, who's been through what she's been through, it really does make you think that you should prioritise it while you have it and staying healthy.
Rather than regret it when you've lost it.
We talk a lot in life about, prevention's better than cure. And
True.
If you're in a position where you can, preserve your health, we should. No, it was a fascinating
episode.
That was
great. She was a brilliant guest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure people take a lot from that as well.
Lovely.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Fancy meeting you in a place like this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're here for another podcast interview.
If I could do a drum roll, don't know if it gets picked up. I've just done one, but not quite a drum.
Very excited today. Very, very excited today. Today we are joined by Gemma Barker. And Gemma is the founder of Barker PR and an absolute bundle of positive energy, which we're going to find out about.
And we've known her for a long time.
Long time.
Obviously when she was very young.
Yes, of course. Incredibly young. Welcome, Gemma. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm really well, thank you. It's lovely to see your happy, smiley faces this morning. It's a pleasure on a
see what she's in PR, can't you? Look at
exactly.
That. Positivity, straight in.
Straight into PR. Straight into PR mode. We often ask people, how are you? And very often you kind of get a stock answer. People just respond with, I'm great, yeah, I'm great, how are you? I guess it's sort of resonates more for you. You very publicly kind of chronicled and recorded your breast cancer treatment. So when we say how are you, genuinely, how are you?
Today I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for asking. It's been a hell of a year. We've just finished Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So
yes.
It's a heavy month because you're kind of very split between, I'm a naturally positive person, as you said. And I guess that's probably the way that I've always kind of lent my sort of perspectives with anything that kind of life's sort of thrown at me. It's not a facade. I sort of naturally kind of am quite upbeat, try to look at the positive out of things. My parents were the same. My husband, when he first met my parents, nicknamed them the positives. He was like, Christ, I've never met anyone like that. So I am that
grumpy
way.
I was going to say, that sounds like a cartoon character. Yeah. Here they come, the positive.
The incredible.
I hope it's not like a toxic way. I like to think it's not. But yeah, it's been Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So you're very split between finding a lot of the content out there very heavy. There's lots of stats thrown at you. There's lots of messages about recurrence and what to look out for. That weighs very heavy when you've had cancer.
I'm sure.
And obviously wanting to do something, because I am in a positive place where I've come through. I'm not quite finished with my treatment, but I've come through the sort of main thrust of breast cancer treatment. I am cancer free, which is great. And you feel that you want to do something to make others breast aware, because there's many people that don't come through the other side. So I feel it's a duty to do something. I'm in PR, so I can talk, I can write. So yeah, I'm well. It's been a bit of a rough month, if I'm honest. Kind of a bit emotionally, physically. treatments sort of ongoing. So you sort of battle a bit with kind of fatigue and a bit of brain fog. And
But Gemma, you're talking about this kind of in the present tense, that, you know, it's hard, you've had some treatment, it's Awareness Month. But you did also decide right at the beginning to chart and chronicle your treatment pretty much from the early days of your diagnosis through a specific Instagram channel.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, to help others, it's incredible because, like you say, I think lots of people see, I guess, what are fairly highly curated PR messages that are still great from Cancer Research UK and others, but to have your first-hand account of what you were going through, I imagine for other people was an incredible story to follow, to give them kind of strength. But how was that for you to actually chart and record that? Because obviously at that time, you didn't know what the next hours, days, weeks held for you. So that must have been quite hard to have been charting that in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that it was a purely kind of selfless move, and actually, it wasn't. It was quite selfish, actually, of me. I mean, I was diagnosed 1st of September last year, and I found a lump, was told I had breast cancer, and as with most with most cancer diagnosis, you are served that news, and then you're kind of left because you've then got to have biopsies and MRIs and various different scans. So there is quite a long period of time before you really get the full picture of what you're dealing with, and at that point you don't know if it's spread, you don't know if it's curable, treatable, anything. And I think most people, particularly my generation, will reach to social media to try and find, you know, cut through the noise. You're instantly told not to Google, so that's quite a scary place. So you want to meet other people that have been through the same thing that you've been through, to be able to talk to them and find your tribe, if you like. So for me, it was people that were positive. It was people that could say, this is shit and it's tough, but actually this is what I've done to get through it. So I very quickly found on social media people that I could chat to that had had the surgery I was about to have, that had had the chemotherapy that I knew I was going to be having in sort of a few months' time. And it was an to say it saved me is such an understatement. Those people, you know, your friends and your husbands and other people are wonderful. There's only so much they can do and say. Yeah. But people that have been in it are remarkable.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, I think sympathy and empathy are two very different things, aren't they?
I say my friend's wife had breast cancer, and she said it's all you're lonely because ultimately, as you said, you know, your friends and family, but they don't really get it. And you need to find a group of people that do really get it. And that is, you know, you have to have a blend of them all, really, don't you? Because otherwise it's a very lonely trail.
It is a lonely trail. And I think you know, I'm a mother of two. I'm a wife. I'm an only daughter, an only child to my parents who's really struggled to have children. My husband lost his mum to breast cancer when he was 27.
Wow.
I'm built in this kind of circle of people where, you know, my survival is absolutely integral to everyone's joy and happiness, right? I've got a team of people that work for me who, you know, were like, oh, what does this mean for us? So
did that drive you on?
I was going to say, can I just ask a question? If you might not want to answer this, how did your husband cope with your diagnosis?
I always say my husband's fairly unemotional, and I think because he's been through quite a lot kind of in his life. I mean, he's very kind and compassionate, but he's quite, you know, right up until the moment that I was diagnosed, he said, you're going to be fine, it's going to be fine. And he sat with me when we were told the news. And he was absolutely broken.
It must bomb him out.
But yeah, I mean, and I felt awful. I felt a guilt that,
because you'd got cancer.
I was like, Christ, you know, he's lost his mum to breast cancer and his fucking wife's got it. Like, you know, what I was like, you know, we always had this joke, like this wasn't part of the contract. And I was like, the contract being marriage. Like, I didn't know this about you before we got together. And I was like, Christ, this really wasn't part of the contract. I was like, I'm so sorry.
What an emotion to have, though, isn't it? You've got, you've been faced with the old cancer diagnosis, and one of your, probably by the sounds of things, one of your first reactions, apart from a bit of shock, is you feeling a bit guilty that you're upsetting your husband. I mean, wow. Talk about, let's have a look at the whole gambit of emotions going on here.
Well, I think most people, you worry less about yourself, don't you? You are faced with your own mortality, but I was terrified for the kids. How would that impact them?
Did you tell them? I'm assuming you told them.
Yeah, we did. We didn't for a while. Until I knew I was going to have chemo, we thought there's no point telling them. They're 7 and 8. I was
going to ask how old they were.
Yeah, they were 6 and 7 at the time. When I knew I had to have chemo, then, and obviously I knew I was going to lose my hair, and it was, they would be aware of what was going on. We had to sit them down and tell them. And it was fairly uneventful. I said, we had to explain what cancer was. I was terrified. I had to explain what cancer was, that you can die from it. You have to be really upfront. The lump that I had, which they knew that I'd had some surgery, turns out it was cancer, but it's gone. But I'm going to have some medicine that's going to make me feel pretty rough. I'm going to lose my hair, but it's going to mean that cancer doesn't come back, which I think you have to be quite definite and reassure them about. And my 7-year-old Bertie, my eldest son, went to my little one, Archie, she's lying. She's not going to lose her hair. And I was like, no. I'm really going to lose my hair. I said, but I'm going to have wigs and you won't know. And when I come and pick you up from school, no one will know. And they were amazing. They sort of went, oh, okay, cool. Can we go now?
Can we go and play football?
Yeah. But then over the next week, they made a couple of quite interesting comments. So my little one went to me on the way to school one morning and went, Mummy, can you believe that you got cancer? And I was like, no. He was like, it's mad, isn't it? I was like, really mad.
Wow.
And said, sort of a couple of things. You think it hasn't sunk in, and then you get like these kind of little snippets of.
Have you got a good shaped head for hair loss?
But who would have known?
Yeah, I say, because you've got quite a good shaped face. I mean, looking at it, you'd probably look all right. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it?
I don't think anyone really suits the proper bald cancer look. I mean, that is you do.
It's a very special, yeah.
You do.
Apart from that woman, Skunker Nancy or whatever it was.
Sorry, Karen.
So I was going to say, how did you prioritise kind of yourself and your business and your family and your kids and your husband? What was kind of because when you're well, I think most people take their health for granted. They don't kind of sit and reflect on what it's like to feel well. So when you're in a period where you need to really focus on your own recovery, what was your kind of system for what comes first?
So I actually suffered with quite a bit of anxiety last year, which I think on reflection was probably I wasn't very well. And this was this underlying, I was getting sick a lot, and I had shingles, and I'd be in meetings and I'd get kind of panic attacks, things like this. And then I was diagnosed, and then obviously you have the anxiety and everything through your illness. When I found out that I had to have chemo, so I knew that ultimately I would have to step back from work, which for me was devastating, because I thought, I love my business. I love the work that I do. I'm so passionate about it. If anything, I've probably always worked too many hours, haven't been as boundary led as I could be. And I didn't really know how to step back. But what happened is this anxiety started building. So I'd be in meetings, or I'd, be on calls, or I'd be pitching something. And it was getting more and more. And I had through the hospital, they recommended, because I reached out to them and said, look, I'm having this awful panic and anxiety. I don't know what, is there anything you could advise? And they said, well, have you ever tried tapping? So they have kind of these, so they said, try some, we'll put you with some, this wonderful lady, she works with lots of kind of women who've sort of recently been diagnosed, and, there's a lot going on, and you might find it really helps. So I had this tapping session. And she was amazing. So she talked through, guess what my worries were, what my anxieties were. And everything for me came down to work. And she said, we sort of talked through it. She said, Gemma, we need to just stop this session. She said, all you focused on is what's going to happen about your business. How are you going to cope not working? How are the team going to cope without you? What are your clients going to think? She said, enough. She said, you are in a place in your life where the only thing that matters is your health. She said, until you start thinking health first, nothing will change. This anxiety will keep building. You're not going to get better. And she really taught me to kind of shift this mindset. I had a few sessions with her. It's not an overnight job, but she kept saying to me, it's health first, everything comes second. And she said to me, the second you switch that mindset, you will start living your life differently. She said, it doesn't matter that you can't work for a couple of months. You know, your team will cope. They will be fine. Your clients will understand. She said, what's the worst thing that can happen? You lose clients or, you know, team member struggles. It will all be manageable. What won't be manageable is if you don't come through this the other side. So
that's interesting, isn't it?
I think that for me was so powerful. And I just had to go, well, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, you are the priority.
And has that stuck with you?
Yeah, I have to really remind myself now. So I finished kind of active treatment, as they call it. So like chemo and radio in June. And I came back. My plan was that I would do kind of 3 days a week. And I've had like a coach. She's like a nutritionist who's sort of been helping me. And she was very kind of firm with me that you need to carve out this space for yourself so that you don't go from, you know, no work to all work again, and make sure that you're really getting that balance right. So what I try to do is I don't let myself work unless I've done exercise. So I do like an exercise class in the morning, or I take the dogs for a long walk. And I try to have 2 clear days off a week at the moment. And I find that if I don't, I get very tired. Things get on top of me quickly. But it's hard because you know, there's always, you know what it's like, your business owners. I genuinely really love what I do. I could do it morning, noon,
and there's
and
always
night.
something to do, isn't it? It's not like you're sitting there with your feet up thinking, I'll tell you what, I'll have a little coffee and read a book. There's always something that you can do because you're that type of person who wants to get up and go and do something. You're not one that sits down and goes, yeah, that's fine.
Gemma, I'm intrigued. If we took the cancer diagnosis out of the equation, the things you learnt about yourself and prioritising your business and anxiety, were they always there? And it was just heightened as a result of your cancer diagnosis and you needing to change your pattern of work. So actually, it's given you a better work-life balance going forward.
Almost a bit of a reset.
Yeah, as a result of your cancer diagnosis, you found out things about yourself that were always there, but perhaps just became a bit more present because of your diagnosis.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I think all I said at the beginning of this was that as long as no one dies, and I was very confident I wasn't going to die, which I maybe is a bit optimistic. That's a positive in me.
Yeah, the positives, they're back.
I have a good prognosis. So I was like, as long as no one dies through this, there's so many positives to come through this. I mean, there's nothing like looking down the barrel of a gun and going, right, am I living my life in the right way? And I think absolutely, I don't think I was doing things, you know, horrendously wrong. But yeah, I definitely didn't have the balance right. I probably never delegated enough within the business and didn't give enough of the rest of my team the chance to kind of really step up in my absence because I was always there. And I think it's quite hard when, you know, I started the business in 2008 and it was just
when you
me.
started. 2008.
Yeah, it was
so
just
was that
me.
just before or after the financial crash?
It was during.
Excellent.
So it was kind of in reaction to, if you like. So yeah, we started up the business and it, you know, so we've been it'll be 15 years next year. Wow. And it was just me. So I guess any business that grows organically and starts off in a consultancy basis, you start doing everything because you have to do everything. So it's just you. And then it grows a little bit. And I was never particularly business minded. So it wasn't, I don't know if you know, the kind of background for me is I set up the business with Ken Finlayson when he sold the business back in 2008, when he sold FMC.
Yeah.
I was working in insurance, actually. So I worked for Howden Insurance Brokers. So I was their marketing manager there. Prior to that, I worked at FMC for 3 years, which is how I knew Ken. And Ken sold the business, came to me. We had a conversation and thought, actually, there's a real opportunity. In light of the financial crisis, lots of people were getting rid of their marketing departments and outsourcing. So I set it up. It was called GG Communications at the time, which was my maiden name initials. And we were a marketing consultancy, and we worked across insurance, finance and dentistry, and a little bit of the GP market as well. We're doing more and more in dentistry because that's where my background and connections were. I bought Ken out after 6 months. So he then launched a publication called, I don't even remember, PPD, Premium Practice.
PPD.
Premium Practice Dentistry. So he started that up, and obviously there would have been a conflict there. So I then went off on my own.
You survived longer than that did.
Yeah. But yeah, it was hard because it started. I didn't have that business acumen, so I had to learn. It made lots of mistakes along the way. But I think
would you have done it on your own, Gemma? If it was just you, would you have had that special ingredient needed to be a solopreneur and do it on your own, or was it the comfort of a partner in the early days that gave you the strength?
I mean, I was only 27, Andy, so I don't think I would have done it at 27. I don't know. It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I couldn't work for anyone now. And would I have been this way anyway? I don't know. I mean, I have a lot to thank Ken for those, kind of getting me started in those early days. And I'm very grateful, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it now. But I don't know. I truly don't know. I guess it would have depended what path it would have taken the rest of my career. But I've always been very driven, very ambitious. And I'm a real people pleaser, which works really well in PR. So with my clients, I guess what we've built the business on, certainly in those early days, was wanting to do a really, really good job for clients, and wanting to exceed expectations and take their budgets and their brief and turn it into something, exceptional, which I'm proud, we've done a lot of. And I guess, as you say, Andy, as it's grown, it's very hard to hand that over or step back from that, because selfishly, I got a lot of gratification from a client going, "Well done, Gemma."
Delegation is the hardest art, I think, as you grow. To understand that to delegate effectively, and that applies to all businesses, doesn't it? Whether it be your business, our business, dental businesses, and the fact of understanding that you might be better off delegating it to someone else. And even if they might not do it as well as you, it gives you more capacity for then you to do the thing that you're really, really good at. But it's a real art. Otherwise, the danger is it falls into that abdication responsibility and then nothing happens.
And I think it's even harder when you're a founder. We've founded business over the years. We've bought business. We've sold businesses. But I think if you found a business, because as you just said, from day one, you're doing everything. So as people come in, they're still doing jobs that you've done and you know how to do. And I think that's hard. And when you found a business, it's like your baby. it's in your DNA, isn't it? It's so important to you. So you want everything to be done perfectly. So that art of delegation, and you were also delegating way before you became unwell, but that really changed it up a notch, in that because you were forced out of the business for a period of time, it meant it had to work in a different way.
And people stepped up, which I think is great. And then there's also that risk, isn't it, when they step up, that when you then re-engage, that you don't then push them back down again.
Oh God. Yeah, Chris, absolutely. And you know what? Having said everything that I've just said, the team have been amazing. And how foolish of me to think that they would have been anything other. I'm not. And I never, it wasn't really ever a question of whether they could deliver. It was my,
it's your own thoughts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we all want to think, Gemma, aren't we, that we're indispensable to what we do. But the vast majority of people, in reality, I could get knocked over by a bus. And okay, some people would miss me, but life would go on.
The bus driver didn't.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But they've been amazing. And actually, like you say, flipping back to the question that you asked at the start, Andy, is that Yeah, absolutely. It's all worked out really, really well. And I'm able to now, Seb Evans joined us just before Christmas. And that's been fantastic for us. And I've, worked with Seb obviously for many years when he was on dentistry.co.uk. And, that's been another kind of string that we've had to our bows and another kind of dimension of sort of skill set that we've got for the team. And there's no way that I would come back in now and take things off people, but I can be more strategic. And
I think business challenge is to keep your work-life balance that you've sort of managed to create, haven't you, really, out of exceptional trying circumstances, is to not think, hey, I'm going to immerse those when my kids are 12, they don't remember who I am.
People talk a lot about work-life balance. You're at the very front pointy end of what that looks like. What does it actually look like for you now?
Really, really good question. I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I think in the kind of literal sense for me, it's still keeping that facade of health and well-being, front and centre before anything else. And I always said, I've certainly said over the last couple of months, it's that, then it's family, then it's work. And I'm not sure I've ever had that balance in the right way, which I'm ashamed to admit. And also ensuring that I'm promoting the right balance for my team as well. And I think, we're ensuring, we're having lots of conversations as a collective company now about how, I'm ensuring that they're going out and doing, getting their fitness and getting fresh air and doing charity work, and they've got the right balance. We all want to work hard, and I'm, the team are really hard working, but we could work 24 hours a day, but it's not practical, and we shouldn't, and we need to get that balance right. When times are tough, I always say to them, our statement is, we don't work in A&E. There are deadlines, but we don't work in A&E. Let's just get some perspective on this. I want everyone to be healthy, enjoy work, and get the right balance. But
genuinely, I think you get better results for your clients like that as well. I think if you come in with energy and passion for what you're doing and good health, you will create better outcomes for your clients. If you're knackered because you're at your desk for 13, 14 hours a day, that's not good for anybody, including clients.
But I think also if your clients don't get it, then they're probably not the right clients for you.
Oh, absolutely. I think that is a really key part of it. We've often said that is that, we've retained quite a lot of our clients for many years, and every year we have some clients that we'll work with on kind of a campaign basis, short-term basis, and they're never necessarily going to be long-term clients. But we have had to say to clients sometimes, the dynamic doesn't always work.
I think you're dead right.
And the expectation, and that's okay. Whereas a few years ago, I never would have said that. I would have been no, love us,
the business, don't you? Yeah, need the business, need the business. Yeah.
Going back to the very beginning, you've been in business for 15 years, which is an incredible achievement. Most businesses, most startups don't make a year, and the stats that make 5 years, it's less than 20% get through to 5 years. So to still be here 15 years on is something that's worth applauding. But going back to the very beginning, how tough was it starting a business, from stepping out from an employed position to suddenly having a computer in front of you, no clients and no business, and saying, right, well, let's get this going? How easy or hard was it?
It was hard. I mean, I had that first 6 months, I guess I had that support of Ken. So we did it together. The period that was tough was when I bought him out. So I owned a flat. I was very lucky. I bought my first flat in London when I was 24. My dad was like, get on that, do it. Lent me a deposit, which I paid him back a few years later. But what I had to do is I rented out my flat in London, moved back in with my parents for a year to pay Ken the money. And my parents looked after me. I mean, I just met my husband, thankfully. So I was up in London kind of weekends. But yeah, I mean, there is real grit, blood, sweat and tears that goes into that. I mean, I remember I booked a holiday sailing in Croatia with friends, and it hadn't cost me an awful lot. It was £800. I didn't have the money for it, so I remember going to cancel it, and my dad saying, "Look, I'll lend you the money so you can have this week's holiday."
It's downtime, yeah.
and my parents were cooking me meals, you know, and they paid for my gym membership so I could go to the gym with them in the evening. And then we got 3M on in those early days. So I was whisking up to Loughborough and back, from Loughborough and then back down to Kent, kind of 3 days a week. And we had we had about 4 clients. It was a bit of a journey. And I was also, when I worked for Howden, I then took them on as a client. So I became their marketing manager, but as an outsourced function. So I used to go into the city on a Wednesday. Howden were the broker, and then I looked after dual corporate risks, who were the underwriting part of that. So then I used to go in and sit in with them on a Thursday. So yeah, I mean, it was hard. And, you know, we weren't making any money. Yeah. And I remember thinking, there's got to be a better way to this. This is ludicrous.
This isn't how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I remember having conversations with accountants going, I'm sorry, how much tax have I got to pay? I've just made this money. Why haven't I got any money to buy my nice face creams and go on holiday and go out for dinner? And I think my husband was like, who is this girl that I've just met that's like an absolute freeloader that's got her own business but has no money? So yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. And then, but I remember going into pitches and pitching against other agencies for big accounts, and it was just me, and sitting in my car and giving myself a real talking to, being like a
motivational speech.
Yeah, I was like, come on, you can do this. And I remember seeing agencies coming up with like 6 people, and there's me, and I'd worked like, you know,
if only you'd have videoed those.
On a
They would
deck.
be invaluable nowadays.
I know.
You could probably sell those as a motivational tool, couldn't you?
I know. I remember being before we got one client. I remember sitting in the car park and seeing them, the other agencies coming out. There were like 3 or 4 of them, and there was just me. And I was like looking in the mirror going, come on, Gemma, you've got this. You can smash this. You're not harder than anyone else will want for this pitch. And I remember getting kind of a really big one, and them saying, you know, the passion and your absolute confidence that you would deliver and exceed all our expectations is what we've bought into. And
Brilliant.
I absolutely was like, yeah, we'll smash it. And we did, and it was great. And suddenly you just get that big client, and then I could get a PA, you know, or someone doing kind of the administrative.
Everything
and then
starts to flow from that. You were talking about kind of little Gemma going up against these big teams and larger agencies. Was it also obvious that you were a woman, and were you generally going up against men, or is it a mixture in your world? Because quite often, you know, we have this thing where, you know, particularly towards the top end of business, it's changing, but it's still very heavily male dominated.
Especially in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I think actually PR has always been it's traditionally seen as quite a female career, female orientated career, and I'm not talking in dentistry, I'm talking across the board. You know, people
Why do you reckon that is?
Well, it's because it's a very social job. It's very sociable. It's lots of communication skills. It's relationship building. And historically, that was always seen to be that kind of softer skills was very female driven, rather than being kind of men go and do the numbers and the number crunching, the economics. Women can make the tea and make everything pretty. I'm not saying, but I think historically that's where it was. I mean, I know when I started.
Out of interest, would the without wishing to sound a bit misogynistic, but would a lot of the marketing sort of directors who made the decisions in the earlier days been men as well?
Yes, at the higher level, definitely. Right. I think dentistry has always been much more male dominated, a far more male dominated industry. I mean, I know associations certainly that I've been sort of part of when I started up as a female business owner, it was mainly men. And I definitely felt intimidated in a lot of those circles that I was only 27, that I was female, and I felt. Out of interest, did
you feel it because you were, or feel it because you felt it? Does that make sense? So were people's responses and actions what made you feel like it, or is it a mixture of you actually felt intimidated and a bit inferior, but they also tried to make you feel a bit inferior? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I don't know if it was intentional. I think certainly over the last 15 years there's been an absolutely monumental shift with how women are perceived in business anyway. We've still got a long, long way to go. But we're certainly, we were members of Albright in London, which is kind of a female private members club, and they do a lot of work kind of empowering women and supporting us. And there are there's lots of work, lots of people doing wonderful things to support women in business now. But I think dentistry, I think anyone could see, I think it's, like we say, I think it's shifting now. But I think certainly the industry side, you talk about those kind of dental dinosaurs. If you went to a BDIA, with the utmost respect, we pay our membership, but if you went to a BDIA members meeting 10 years ago, it was all men, predominantly all men, and everyone was kind of 55 and up. And being 28, it would be like, oh, Gemma.
It's fascinating because from our point of view, we don't actually deal with the industry that much. So lots of the dental supply companies, over the years, people band names around, and if they're in large supply companies, we just don't tend to know those people. But looking at how dentists and dentistry's evolved over those years, in dental schools now, it's probably tipped over the balance, and there's more females at dental schools than males.
I think it's 75%.
And in practice ownership, it's changing. And in my experience, women make outstanding principals. Just because I think you're right, I think they tend to be the soft skills, that kind of motherly care tends to come through more strongly with the team, but also that then feeds the culture, which then filters through to the patient. So I think there's a huge role to play, but also I think dentistry is a great profession for men and women that perhaps don't want to work full time. And obviously, just because of biology, women have kids. So working a couple of days and coming back to work, it's a great profession to come in for.
It can flip the other way, doesn't it? It seems to be sometimes we come across either women principals who embrace their femininity and the skills that they've got, or they decide that they want to be like men, which is sort of almost a traditional "I'm going to beat the crap out of you" sort of style. And it's really, well, hang on a minute, you're almost foregoing your better skill set by trying to be something that really isn't probably going to get the best results. It's quite strange how they sort of split down into two camps. Really.
In your 15 years, Gemma, how's the world of PR changed? Because I'm guessing that when you got into this game, digital marketing, social media wasn't really a thing.
Did you have cameras on your phone?
2008.
No.
When did Facebook start?
Yeah, that was before then.
When was Instagram?
Yeah, that was 2006, wasn't it? Facebook.
Yeah, so
Instagram's after that. Wasn't it?
Yeah. So there wouldn't have been an Instagram. There would have been a very basic version of Facebook. So for you've gone from broadly being analog PR to now so digital. What's that transition been like? Yeah,
I mean, it's a massive. There's been a massive shift, and obviously with AI, kind of coming in, we've got a new dimension again. But
we're not even here. You're talking. You're talking to avatars.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
I mean, you look great, so whatever.
Very effective computer power.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception across the board about actually the role that, what PR actually is. And a lot of people will think that it's articles or blog posts, when actually that, it's not content necessarily. And if that was the case, then, AI would certainly kind of replace the role that we do, and then we'd be seeing a massive shift. But actually, PR is really there to manage the way that an target audience feels about that company or brand. What has changed, and that's the case across the board. So what we're doing is building credibility and trust in the clients, the companies and the brands that we work to. And we do that in a quite sort of strategic, clever way that's bespoke for each company, each product and service that we look after. The mediums that you would use, that you would apply through that strategy, have changed, certainly. So I think certainly in dentistry, 15 years ago, you'd be looking at a lot of kind of print publications, predominantly. because if you're looking at your target audience, how can you communicate directly with vast masses of a target audience? Well, you do it through those publications. Yes, digital has changed, definitely, but obviously you've got communities on social media now and associations. So it's about focusing specifically on that target market, how that target market are consuming messages, or where they're getting their information from, and disrupting those messages in the right way. And I think we're in such a high period of change as well, and we are constantly looking and measuring and challenging what those audiences are doing. So again, it will change dependent on campaigns that we're doing, but you've obviously got the older generation of dentists might still be very loyal to a particular publication. You've got those that will be looking online to get their information. You've got those that just won't read dental media at all. Sorry, MC, the pro BDJ. You've got those people that just will shun it. They might just go to a dental event once a year. Or there is a lot of kind of work being done at our side with our clients on ensuring that our clients become the media. So rather than relying on outside sources, which ultimately is what you guys are doing here, which is phenomenal. You know, the podcast that you've got is ensuring that you can reach your potential customers, build relationships with existing customers directly without having to rely on outside forces. And ultimately, that's the shift that you want to take all your clients to, so that you don't have to have these kind of big external budgets. But I think you're very fortunate if you don't have to rely on those external mediums through which to communicate with your audience, because there will always be new people that you can't touch. So I think it's
you have to do a bit of everything almost.
Yeah, but you're right, Andy. It's absolutely shifted, and social media. But I think it's going to shift again. And this is the joy of communication. Is that I think certainly with COVID, what we saw from a PR perspective, it really emphasised the importance of PR across the board in all businesses, because in lieu of not being able to advertise or directly sell or directly market to your target market, because everyone was shut down, no one wanted to buy anything, particularly in dentistry, it's how could you maintain connections and with your target audience, with your customers, and maintain that rapport, when actually all we wanted to do was feel connected to people personally and through business. And that's really, I think, from a PR perspective, that's what we're constantly looking to do, is create meaningful connections between our brands and between the dental profession. But also on a personal level, I think we look at all of these external mediums like social media. Actually, we all just want to be with people. We want to be at events. We want to be together. We want to talk on podcasts. We want to connect. We want to have meaningful conversations. So I think it'll be really interesting over the next 5 to 10 years is that we've gone away from being together. And I'd like to hope that that's going to do a full circle, and we'll start having.
I've seen that article today. It was a bloke it was on the BBC, and him and his wife set up a business, I think 2018, about renewables and recyclables, and basically it was gone out of business. And he said what they didn't do, which is an interesting one because it sort of is what you're telling people to what they should be looking at for their PR, was he focused on one avenue. He said we got everything from Facebook. He said, and we never really did anything else. He said, and then when they introduced their privacy settings, he said the business fell off a cliff, but we didn't recognise it quick enough, and we didn't do anything else to replace it. He said, and what we should have done is we should have done more face-to-face things. We should have done more trade shows. We should have done this. And it's that whole thing, isn't it? At one time, people thought Facebook, that's the way to go. Instagram, that's the way to go. But you have to have a blend of the whole thing.
I think, as you said, Gemma, I think anything where you interact with your client through somebody else's platform is dangerous, because you don't actually have a direct relationship.
And they change the rules and you're screwed.
I think if you strip everything back, what people really want is authentic connections.
Yeah.
And how can you be your most authentic as a brand, as a business? And that's when you're directly face to face with people. So people can make assumptions about a product, about you, Andy, about you, Chris, but actually until they're stood right in front of you and you go, right, this is what we're about, this is our business, this is what we care about, they're not going to get it. And how can you really effectively translate that to an advert, an e-shop, a social media? You can try, but that's all steps to take you to that face-to-face connection. And that's really what we look to do with, you know, the campaigns that we put together. It's the first port of call. It's the campaigns that we do is to make people feel good about the people that we're looking after, the brands or the services, which ultimately we want to lead to that face-to-face communication, which ultimately we would hope would lead to a sale. But it's just making sure all those kind of steps between that kind of PR and that face-to-face is authentic and is a direct representation of what they would expect when they come face-to-face with you. And that's really critical. And I think until you have that face-to-face piece, everything else is...
That's why I think that AI is ultimately going to end up in a box to the side. Because I think we've already started to work out, and don't get me wrong, I think AI is incredible. We've been using bots on websites with banks and utilities for years. But I think this kind of explosion of people just generating, frankly, you know...
turgid content.
It is. It's, chat
It all looks the same.
Well, the chat GPT and the Bard stuff, if you read content, I wouldn't say I can spot it every time, but you're already starting to spot things because it goes back to what you were saying, Gemma. It's not authentic. There's no personality to it. And, you know, I would hope that if somebody met me, I'm kind of a very narrow bandwidth of an article they might have read that was written by me, or a podcast, or a post on social media. I hope that I'm that same person. But if you start generating content through another channel that isn't you, I think it's going to really confuse your audience in terms of who you really are. So that what you're saying makes perfect sense, that strategically everything lines up. So when they get to the point when they meet an individual, they go, well, I already knew what you were like anyway, because everything I've seen, it's like, you know, the dots have just joined and those lines between the dots have got thicker and thicker to the point where I met you and it goes, yeah, of course that's who you are, because I know so much about you already. But that has to happen with a human involved.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Andy. And I think if you were to read an article by you, written by you, that someone else had crafted or was crafted by chat, and people that really knew you, they go, oh, he hasn't written that. I've had a conversation with him on this topic. That's not how he would speak. And I think that's really important. You know, we had quite a few conversations with people about 6 months ago going, do you think ChatGPT is going to put you out of business? And I was like, absolutely no way. Because if you think that that's the way that we work, then you really misunderstood PR. You know, and apps, I mean, I find it fascinating. And we spend loads of time, you know, populating, you know, trying to see what we can pop out of that system. And I do still find it absolutely fascinating. But if you just want a generic article and a blog post, you know, crack on, guys. You know, go and stick something in there. It's great. It's not going to do anything, and it's not going to make massive waves. It's not going to be shared across social media as a, you know, wow, this is such an interesting piece. But I think it's a very, very interesting tool.
Given all you've done, Gemma, with your working for businesses, starting a business, you know, your recent health issue, do you sweat the small stuff?
Definitely not as much. Definitely not as much.
You used to?
Oh, big time. My biggest thing was really, really cared about what people thought about me, which serves really well when you're in PR, because you work day and night. And I remember a good friend of mine saying, it's none of your business what people think about you, Gemma. And I was like,
good
and
advice.
it really, really stuck with me. I definitely care less about that, but it's a work in progress. But yeah, I mean, God, there's nothing like a cancer diagnosis where the only thing I care about is living the next 40 years and being there to see my children grow up. That's all I care about. And everything now that I do is to be able to, you know, ensure that that's the case. So ensure that I'm healthy. I'm having a business that gives us nice holidays so we can have special time together.
Build those memories, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll still shout at my husband when he's, not taking a spin out or something. Or
that's part of the wedding vows. Don't rescind on that.
Get pissed off when he ate the Twix out of the kids' Halloween, bag last night.
Does my bum look big enough? That sort of thing.
I guess you've got a fairly unique perspective that many don't have. But what would you say is the most important skill an entrepreneur needs?
Wow. I think it goes back to. For me, I think it's very different. I mean, it's everything for me is relationship led, right? And that for me is the absolute crux of everything. And it's, the strength of the relationships within my team and the strength of the relationships that we have with our clients is absolutely critical. What do I think is the kind of how can I kind of force that into kind of a single most important element? I think it's that authentically giving a shit. And I really, really give a shit that the clients that we look after do really, really well. And
caring PR angle, AuthenticShits.com.
Yeah, we authentically give. Hang on, Chris said I could swear at the beginning, so I wonder if I've taken that a little bit too far.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
I think it's really, really caring.
And we give a shit.com.
Yeah. And it's
what if that website's available?
And that being authentic, I don't think you can dress anything up like that. If I sit with a potential client, and I believe we can help them, we are going to work absolutely tooth and nail because we really genuinely care. So I think for me, that entrepreneurship goes down to, really caring and loving the work that you do. Because if that's at the heart of everything, then you just can't go wrong. And instilling that in the rest of your team, which I think we've got.
Yeah, Gemma, it's been a fascinating, enlightening, and very honest conversation. I think it's been brilliant, but we can't let you go just yet because we always ask our guests 2 questions. And the first question we have for you is if you could be a fly on a wall, a fly on a wall.
A fly on a what?
A fly on a wall.
I'm
not sure what a fly on a wall would be. I think that's a walnut whip type whirl. But if you're the fly on a wall and there's a certain situation, where would that be? Who would be there? What's going on?
Yeah. Okay, 10 years' time, my children, my 2 boys, are sitting in a room talking about me, and I would be a fly on the wall without me being there.
Wow.
And I'd like to, I remember a colleague of mine saying, or a good friend of ours saying a few years ago, he went through some business coaching, and we were talking about it over a dinner party, and he said, this business coach asked me, we were looking at kind of where we want to take things over the next 5 to 10 years. And he said, start with asking yourself how you want your kids to talk about you in 10 years' time, and we will work back from there. And it's stuck with me since then. So
no one has ever done a future fly on the wall.
No.
We've done 120 odd of these.
Yeah.
No one has ever done a future fly on the wall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, nobody.
I think if you ask them now, it would be vacuous, right? They're 7 and 8. They care about how many sweets I'm going to let them have tonight.
Yeah.
But,
what about Halloween last night?
Yeah. But yeah, genuinely, I want them to say good things and think good things.
They'd be 17 and 18, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I can see how that would really influence and impact all those small decisions you do, because kids watch you all the time. Yeah, they're watching every minute behaviour, and quite often it's the things that we do when people aren't watching us are the most important things. Because when you're on show, people always kind of put on a slightly different behaviour, but when you're not being watched, I think you find the truth as to what somebody's really like. So that would be a very interesting. So we have to make a diary note, and in 10 years' time, we'll get you and your 2 boys who are going to be now in their late teens on, and we'll say, right, okay, let's find out.
Yeah, I mean, it could be terrifying, couldn't it?
You could set up one of those little mini cams that you can hide.
Yeah. And our follow-up question is, if you could meet somebody, you're going to sit down in a country pub with a coffee or a glass of wine.
Living or dead?
Yeah.
Fact or fictional?
And have a chat. Who would you like to meet?
So this is this could really disappoint you, but I have to be really honest. It would be Harry Styles.
Really?
Oh, I don't think we've had Harry.
No.
It would be,
Would you go bonkers?
Absolutely love him. I'm sorry. I really thought about this question. I thought, right, who can I think about? It's really inspiring.
Nelson
And
Mandela.
Michelle Obama, all these incredible people.
No, it's Harry Styles. There was a rumour that he moved to our area about 18 months ago.
And you cycled everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Honestly changed my world. I think I sent about 30 text messages in half an hour going, oh my God.
Have you got a feather boa?
Guess what? I went to see him twice in June. I just love him. I love his music. Love him. Yeah. We refer to him as my house as Mummy's boyfriend. So anytime Dave, my husband and I have a row, my little one goes, don't worry, Mummy, we'll end up with Harry Styles soon. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Did you dress up like cowboy hat and boots and
I had a feather boa
or whatever?
and I had an I Love Harry hat, yeah.
We had some people who went and they said that the road from Wembley Park around was littered with feathers and glitter.
Yeah.
Because he was there for a few days.
It's like nothing I've ever known. A lot of love in the room. It was just great.
You get on very well with my daughter. My daughter went and saw him, and it was at Hammersmith.
Yeah.
And she camped out, because obviously at Hammersmith there's a certain amount of seating, but it's mostly open standing. And so she stayed overnight with her friend. And it wasn't the best of nights, and Harry Styles had arranged for pizza and hot chocolate to be delivered. And she still has her empty hot chocolate cup, on the basis that I don't think Harry Styles got particularly near to this hot chocolate cup. I don't think he was delivering them by hand, but she still has her hot chocolate cup because for whatever reason, I think some people just connect with music stars in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, bless her. Yeah, I mean, that's why he's such a legend. I've got a book. My friend bought me a book when I started. Well, actually, I should have had my mug. I've got a mug that says I don't feel like doing anything today, but I do Harry Styles. I mean, I've got a colouring book. I've got a
colouring book. How old are you?
Almost 42. It's embarrassing.
Do you do them as relaxation? Is that what you do? Like, I'm going to colour in Harry's hair or something?
Yeah, well, that was the plan. Yeah, it's just sat there. I'm not sure I could do it justice, to be honest. But yeah, big fan.
Brilliant.
That would be my man.
Gemma, thank you so much.
It's been brilliant.
It's been a really, I mean, for given what you've been through, I think it's incredibly uplifting,
inspirational.
I think your outlook. You seem to have your shit together, and whether you've mastered it really well, you seem to somebody who's really understood your understood your situation and got all the important elements lined up, and a real sense of purpose and love for life. It's great to see, and I'm glad you're well as well.
That's brilliant.
Thanks so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's brilliant.
I look forward to seeing you soon as well.
At an event sometime.
Cheers, Gemma. Keep well.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.